Perry is one of these rare commodities in exercise therapy, a specialist who pulls his teaching of movement and mindfulness from both Eastern and Western practices. He's developed an app that I particularly like, which encourages you to get up and move every hour of your working day.
So when we're talking about mindfulness from our perspective at the center, we look to bring mindfulness into movement and strength training. So I have a background in martial arts that I did for 12 years with Kung Fu and Tai Chi, played basketball, football, and now we focus a lot on natural movement, kettlebell training. And where we look to bring the mindfulness in is that if you can't improve how you're moving, then you can't move more often. So oftentimes, especially in a training, in a gym environment, people want to train hard, and it's a lot of what Ian addresses, and that's part of where we connected, is this syndrome of people just trying to train hard, train fast all the time to either compensate for sedentary lifestyle, or if they're trying to get into shape, that they're trying to push excessively. But some of the big issues that we see is that then there's an issue in a lot of how people move. We go back to moving a lot in how kids move, so that's getting on the ground, doing lots of crawling patterns, doing lots of climbing, carrying patterns, lots of free weights, so moving away from anything that would be restricted with a machine. What ties in with the mindfulness is that now people can't get to our center all the time for a class or for a session, and so nowadays having a device, a phone or a pad, is useful in that we can reach people. We know the negative effects of being hunched over a tablet, a phone, a computer for long periods of time, and the stress that it places on the neck and the rest of the body, but you can use the devices and you can use them to your benefit. So we developed a mobile app called JAMM. It's called Just a Mindful Minute. It is available for download on iOS and Android. And the reason that we created it primarily was the number one excuse that we hear from people is don't have time. Okay. Now, if you are healthy, active, mindful in some way, you know it's about making effort. So the same thing with the eating. You can't say that there's not enough time to eat well. It's about prioritizing. It's prioritizing your shopping. It's about prioritizing the actual food preparation. So, okay, you don't have time. You have a minute. Okay, and so what we've looked to develop with the program is basically small bite-sized chunks that you can recharge during the course of the day. So come to standing, because standing is good for you. I'm sure you spent many hours sitting, if not at your desk, then possibly in the car, in traffic. We have developed and taken the philosophy from the center that is based a lot on awareness, balance. We look at mobility, stability, we look at movement, we look at strength. There are obviously areas that we're not specialists in, so when it comes to the nutritional, the lifestyle area, that's where we'll refer off to somebody like Ian, or it might be another field. We focus primarily on the movement, the strength, the health part, particularly when it comes to natural movement. We do have a nutritional category, and I'll get to that, but just to get some of the juices flowing. If you should have a little bit of space, and we're just going to have a look at what your balance is like. Everyone's balance is good? Uncertain. Okay. So if you stand on your right leg, okay, and raise the left. If you have a skirt on, just straighten the leg. You don't have to lift the knee very high. Okay. So try to lift that other knee up. Bring the opposite finger, the opposite arm up, and you're going to look at your fingernail, and for 30 seconds, just track your finger. So you can go up, you can come down, you can come in, you don't lose your balance, and try and go through different areas. So come across the body, come up and come down. Okay. Change, so other leg, other hand, so it's the opposite side. So again, just watch your fingernail, watch yours, not somebody else's. And then notice that difference. So what is the difference between the side that you started on and the side that you're on now? Is one side more stable than the other? Is there any difference in your breathing? Good. Okay, you can take a seat again. So really it's as simple as that in terms of taking a mindful break. So you could be at work, you just stand up from your desk, you do a basic balance exercise and you sit back down. There are 7 categories. The name of the center is 7-Star Energy Center, so we base it off that. We'll tap into the nutritional category and actually a lot in what Ian touched on. We're not nutritionists or dietitians, so we don't recommend diets. But the other categories, and just to highlight really how important it all is that we have play, in that we learn as kids. Okay? As kids we learn to mimic and we learn through play. As adults we can still learn through play, we can also de-stress through play. We look at breath, and the breath is hugely important. What Ian was talking about, obviously the utilization of the diaphragm from a digestive state, but from a training perspective, we'll always start every session with some form of deep breathing, just to bring a person into the space, because you can't just get in and go. So just taking that moment to slow down, to breathe, it's actually, well, I'm a little bit stiff today, I'm a little bit tired today, and I need a little bit extra longer in my warm-up, or this is tight, I need to release it. Okay, now I can move forward to lift my weights, jump up and down. The balance is key, not only in terms of physical balance, but one could say even an emotional balance, because if you're trying to, we will walk on a plank, or we might walk on a beam, it's very difficult to do that when your mind is running elsewhere. So it's about bringing presence to, am I aware of which leg I'm standing on, which one is in front of the other. If the mind's running away with what's for dinner, have I emailed that person, that's where your balance gets lost. We look at mobility, and with mobility is primarily looking at the quality of joint movement. Okay, in a movement screen that we would do with someone, a lot of that is missing, that sometimes a person just can't go into a basic squat and then hold that for a period of time. So it's no point in now loading weight onto the body if you can't even hold that position for a couple minutes body weighted. So the quality of movement through the joints is really important. Looking at movement, we're trying to break the monotony of movement, particularly in straight lines. So people might sit for long periods, they sit in traffic, they then go and run, and then they cycle. And it's all in this very fixed pattern if they are moving. But we're not pieces of Lego, so we do have to move dynamically. And again, we look at how kids move. Sometimes even, Nicola's done it, she's brought her kids into session, and we follow them, and it's challenging because you have to get to the ground and you have to get into awkward positions. There's a great video, it's actually an advert for New Balance, where Dale Steyn, the cricketer, he has to follow around a toddler for the day. And he's shattered by the end of it, because he has to do everything, and he has to go down and he has to follow and come up and down. But it just highlights how much of our movement we actually lose, and that in an exercise environment, that it's like, okay, so now I will do my bench press, now I will do my squat. Well, that's not the only area where you can get movement. So there should be movement, and a variety of movement through the course of the day. And then the last category is strength. We do strength training, we do weight training, but we primarily focus on kettlebell training, and if I can say natural weight training, where we'll pick up rocks and logs and tires, closer to what we would have done if we weren't in a fixed gym environment. For some people that works, that they want to sit on a machine, or they just want to do an isolated muscular exercise. That's fine if more aesthetics are what they're after, but you want that carryover, that then if it's to play with your kids, that you can get down to the ground and you can move with them. If you suddenly have to pick something up, you can do that as well. The nutritional category, we put that in there to highlight to people that it is important. We tell people that JAMM is just a tool. So it's not going to fix everything. You can certainly feel better doing something, like you can just take a minute, stand up, work on your balance. You can play a game with a friend or a colleague. It's not going to fix everything, but it's part of the overall puzzle. So it's the same thing with nutrition, is that they can't look at this or an exercise as one thing that'll fix it all. So we give very basic mindful tips in the apps. For example, the first one, it might not be that clear, but it's just around chewing slowly. Okay? It might seem odd to use the app for that, but nowadays people might actually need an app to remind them. How it's structured is, if I go back to the landing page, we've highlighted that each day, the one that you see there, you're trying to get 16 minutes a day. That's all you have to do. Okay, we've allocated 16 that if you're ideally getting 8 hours of sleep, it's giving you 16 waking hours, and you could do 1 minute every hour. Maybe that doesn't work, you just do all 16 in a row. Maybe you do them in batches of 4, 4, 4, or maybe you just do 1 minute today and 2 minutes the next day. But it's all about trying to create sustainable habits that are easy for people to change. We'll often see people come in and they want to make big changes in their eating and their physical appearance and all these great things, and it's like, okay, how long is that motivation going to last? It's going to come down to what you can do on a daily basis and just repeat, repeat, repeat. So if people see myself or Pedro as like, oh, that looks easy for you guys, or you guys are in shape, it's like, well, we've been doing it for 10, 15, 20 years, and it's a process that's built on it. So we look to build that minute by minute. And when then people can see that, okay, all I have to do is take a minute to slow down and just be mindful of how I'm eating, I can follow that with a couple minutes maybe to do before heading to bed. Yes, it's on a device, but we're at least trying to reach people and say that you can increase your mindfulness during the course of the day, because you will be in just automatic zones that you just have to do stuff. We're not on a consistent Zen cloud. But if you can take a step back every hour or every 2-3 hours and just say, okay, so what has happened? Have I had something to drink? Have I moved? Have I eaten? How do I feel? So we'll oftentimes with people just do a check-in. Are you feeling stiff? Are you feeling tired? So that's a lot of what it's based on. But as I said, with the nutritional component, there as basic tips for people that then can build into the specialization of how am I eating, what am I eating, but really a lot of what Ian touched on carries over even into the physical component, because if you're aware of how you move, you can move more often.